The film in which you are about to see is an account of the ordeal in which befell a lone amateur cave explorer. Originally from Bloomington, Indiana, Lukas Cavar was a fresh-faced freshman going to Indiana University. Lukas wanted to shake his mundane life up though and have some fun. So when he learned that the university offered a caving club, he jumped at the opportunity. And on September 17, 2017, the club was planning a beginner spelunking trip inside Sullivan's cave system, which is located about 20 miles or 32 kilometers south of the university. The cave system itself is the fourth largest in the state of Indiana, with 63 miles or 101 kilometers of winding tunnels and passageways, though most of the map is actually mapped and easy to traverse, making it an ideal cave system for a beginner. And as Lukas had never went spelunking a day in his life, this was the perfect trip for his first time at the sport. So on the morning of September 17th, 2017, Lukas and 10 other students and a university staff member headed towards Sullivan Cave. Before they started driving though, they divided into two groups of 6, driving in 2 different cars. And as an added precaution, each student was buddied up with another student. Once they got there and everyone was ready, they broke off into their 2 separate groups and everyone started to explore. The first few hours were fine and Lukas was enjoying himself. That is, until the small team of 6 began their descent into a rather restricting passageway known as the backbreaker, which is located right here. It would be at this time that Lukas would start to voice his discomforts with this part of the cave system, stating, "I'm not really enjoying this backbreaker part," so not wanting to go home on the account of one student. Lukas thought he would remember his way back to the entrance and volunteered to find his way back to the other part of the cave where the second group of the students were exploring at. As he was finding his way to the other group, he started to notice certain rocks popping up that he had seen only minutes before, and before he knew it, he felt his heart sinking into the bottom of his stomach as he would slowly realize that he was now lost. And even though he was in a mapped out cave, Lukas was inexperienced and was already inside a 63-mile or 101 kilometer deep cave system, so unfortunately he would become lost. Luckily for him, that although this was a very deep cave system, it was also considered a beginner's cave, and so he was not lost for long. But as Lukas crawled up the entrance of the cave, his heart sank into his stomach as he just stared at the entrance. It had already turned dark, and his classmates had left him there, in the middle of a cave, alone. But that wasn't even the worst part. Sullivan Cave is in a privately owned cave system, and therefore has a gate that locks the entrance during after hours, meaning that Lukas was now trapped inside without a single soul around to let him out. But how? How could this have happened? Well, unfortunately, because of the group of spelunkers drove to the cave in separate cars and left the cave at separate times, both groups had simply assumed that Lukas was with the opposite group and left him there without even knowing. As soon as Lukas realized his predicament and the fact that he had no food or water, he would then begin to yell out as loud as he could for hours on end, in the hope that someone would hear his cries for help. But this cave was in the middle of the wilderness, and without a reason for the owner to come out, no one was around for miles to hear his plea. After a few hours of yelling for help, he would consume a good amount of energy and would begin to go back inside the cave in order to find any kind of water or food source. After wandering around for a few hours, he would then begin to notice the water sliding off the cave walls. And understanding what he had to do to survive, he would then begin to lick what he could get off of the walls in order to not get dehydrated. He was also lucky enough to find plants and small bugs in order to not starve to death. He also still had his phone with him, but no service, and only a limited battery power. So he would decide to only use it as a way to write his friends and family letters just in case it was too late before anybody found him. On top of that, in order to keep himself sane, he would go in and out of talking to himself, sleeping, and just taking his time foraging for food and water. On Monday, September 18th, his parents, both being professors at the university, would send him a text to see how he was doing at school. When he eventually would never text back, they both became increasingly worried. Though understanding college students can have a very full schedule and overall life in general, they decided to wait until the next day to call him in missing. As soon as the university found out, they would send members of the club to the cave in order to rescue Lukas. Luckily, Lukas was still at the entrance of the cave when they arrived. They noticed that Lukas was sleeping in the fetal position, And so in order to let him know that they were there, they flashed their bright flashlights on him. And as they did so, Lukas would look up disoriented, not even knowing where he was. Once he realized what was actually happening, he scrambled out of the cave as fast as he could without even looking back. And knowing he would be starving, the club members had a hamburger and big bowl of pasta waiting for him on the outside. Though, as he said in a statement after this, the rest of it was actually just a huge blur. In an official statement, the university would go on to say, "We have a series of rigorous protocols in place that are supposed to prevent situations like this from happening. But these protocols are only effective if followed. And with that being said, we had a failure in our leadership." Lukas would go on to send this photo into the news station after the ordeal, in order to let everyone know that he was okay. Unfortunately though, Lukas would decide to never go spelunking ever again. Let me know in the comments what would you have done if you were in Lukas's position. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button, and hit the notification bell for more content in the future. Goodbye for now.